In the news this week, nowhere to charge. The electric car rollout in WA faces major hurdles as the McGowan government is urged to support retrofitting issues in old apartments. An exclusive interview coming up.
Strikes are on the cards as public sector protests continue for higher wage rises.
Yangebup community celebrates following the withdrawal of an appeal for a proposed metal crushing facility.
Calls to relax no pet rental laws in Western Australia to accommodate furry friends. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. The future of electric vehicles in Western Australia continues to face major hurdles, with homeowners in apartments now dealing with retrofitting issues. It's a major problem yet to be addressed, and the McGowan government has been urged to step in and provide better information to encourage more West Aussies to purchase electric cars. Opposition's planning spokesman Neil Thompson joins us exclusively on this matter. Neil, thanks for your time. The massive growth of electric cars in WA has outpaced apartment home infrastructures. Are you concerned that this has disencouraged people who want to switch to electric cars and says, no, it's just too hard?
But there must be more support from the state government so this can be facilitated, because we're seeing a massive growth in electric vehicles. We're going to see an incredible growth in electric vehicles, and obviously charging those electric vehicles while you're at home, while you're in your apartment, while you're resting at night is the way to go. And yes, there will be other charging stations available, but until we resolve this massive issue, it's going to be very difficult to see electric vehicles being utilised by people in those apartments where the charging isn't available.
So how should costs spread fairly among owners, given some might need it and some won't?
Well, that's right. And look, at the end of the day, the principle of user pay should exist, but that should be kept to a minimum. The principle is that's fair, but there has to be the ability to retrofit an old apartment with a charging station on a car bay or through some shared car bays, whatever the decision of that apartment group of owners decides, needs to be facilitated. And there needs to be expert advice given. And that's where the government can step in and assist apartment owners collectively to provide better information so that we can actually roll it out and we don't actually slow the rollout of electric vehicles in our state.
What should the McGowan government do so we can future-proof homes to be electric cars ready, given this is a big issue to tackle from both costs and engineering perspectives?
There's a lot that can be done. The department and the government have immense resources at their disposal. They need to provide better information. They need to provide better frameworks and advice. So these volunteer bodies, mainly volunteer bodies, which are the collective group of owners, which form these strata bodies, are much better equipped to deal with which is going to be a very difficult technical challenge going forward.
Neil Thompson, thanks for joining us all the way from Broome. Have a good time.
Thank you.
WA's public sector workers are continuing the fight for better wages, with unions rallying together in fresh protests warning their campaign is far from over. They're calling for a 5% increase with potential strikes on the cards, but the McGowan government says their pay offer is adequate. Nelson Liu reports.
Out in force once more in a show of solidarity. Public sector workers continuing demands for a better pay deal. Nurses, firefighters, police officers, transport workers and teachers with bills to pay and families to feed, taking their fight to Parliament in their biggest protest yet.
I think our position is clear. This falls well short. It falls well short of increasing cost of living. It's not an opportunity.
Currently on offer is a 3% pay rise a year. These more than 1,000 workers say the increase doesn't cut it.
Our members can't put food on the table, they can't pay their bills, they can't clothe their kids, and it's got to stop.
The police force high attrition rates because they're going to other jobs, better wages, better rostering practices, weekends off.
Their calls remain for a 5% pay rise.
Public sector workers have made their feelings known about what they think is acceptable. It's now time for the McGowan government to listen. They've had enough of pay increases that don't attract and retain public sector workers to do the jobs that our community relies on.
And if it doesn't happen, the potential for strikes now a real possibility.
But action will only ramp up from here. Members are angry, they've worked through the pandemic, they want their due.
The protest is the latest in a long line of rallies calling on the McGowan government to return to the negotiating table, but the state government claims its pay rise is adequate. It's refusing to budge on its offer.
We understand that our offer is not what we want, but it's what we believe we can afford.
But the state opposition is standing behind public sector workers.
When the Minister for Industrial Relations, Bill Johnson, went out to speak to that rally, they booed him off the stage. I mean, that's how disgusted they are with the government. You know, and no wonder they're disgusted.
Unions say the government needs to act now.
It's now time for the McGowan government to listen.
Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
And here are other top stories making news in Perth and WA this week.
The latest design of the Fremantle traffic bridge has been unveiled by the McGowan government this morning. The major revitalisation will see dramatic changes in the new traffic bridge's design, with new features including redirecting Canning Highway under the new bridge, with additional freight rail tracks reducing logistic bottlenecks between port and passenger rail. Opportunities for new public open spaces are also featured in the design, and current timber pylons at the current traffic bridge will be used for landscaping. It's hoped that the new bridge's free-flowing infrastructure design will reduce Fremantle Town Centre's traffic issues. Community discussions are currently ongoing for the $280 million project.
We're very excited. Can I thank the Commonwealth Government for contributing half the money for this bridge. It'll be a great new initiative, a much safer way of getting across the river, a long-term solution to a problem that has been there and building for some years.
Here, we want this bridge to be handed to a group that can run it, and you just look at it. It's an iconic bridge, level 1A heritage listed, and they've got to knock it down, and it's still got years left in it.
The Yangebup community is celebrating after plans to build a metal crushing facility failed to materialise. After more than 12 months' worth of twists and turns, the potential developer has withdrawn their appeal from the State Administrative Tribunal after failing to pass the development plans via the Cockburn City Council. Despite the victory, residents have raised concerns over the council's community consultation process, wanting change. WAMN News understands the land has been brought from the developer by an unknown party.
I accidentally found out about it, and I was like, oh, this is a big deal, and nobody knew, and I was like, okay, I have to let people know. And then I realised that the process of letting people know about DAs near their suburbs is like flawed. So like someone says, can I do this? And the council goes, yes or no. Yep. And you're supposed to have some sort of process in between where the public can say, I don't like that, or I do like that, or just have a say. And that part is flawed because they don't know.
We actually sent out over 500 letters to surrounding businesses and residents. We went through our social media channels. We also, I personally actually attended a number of meetings with the community groups. If we received another application for a crushing plant, we would actually go through the same procedure that we did previously, which would be quite detailed investigations.
You can read the full story by subscribing to the WAMN Extra News Club via the link in the description and support independent local journalism.
2 young men have died after their motorcycle crashed in East Rockingham. The 17-year-old and 22-year-old were travelling near the intersection of Patterson Road and Ennis Avenue in foggy conditions just before 2:25 a.m. on Thursday when they lost control of the vehicle. A member of the public attempted to provide first aid before police and St John ambulance arrived, but both died at the scene. Major crash detectives are investigating, and anyone with information is asked to contact Crime Stoppers.
There were independent witnesses that have been interviewed, so it was a single vehicle, which was the motorcycle, which left the road at the intersection and travelled into bushland, and it's believed that it impacted with a tree.
Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison has refused to resign from Parliament following revelations he secretly appointed himself to 5 ministerial portfolios during the pandemic. Mr. Morrison said he acted in the national interests, and that is what I did in a crisis, claiming he was sworn into the portfolios with emergency powers to protect the nation. The former Prime Minister said his actions were lawful and he was forced to arm himself with powers in the 5 portfolios as a safeguard to protect the nation against unforeseen challenges. It has been revealed that Mr. Morrison took control of 5 portfolios during the pandemic, following a book titled Plagued, written by 2 journalists that were released over the weekend. The book was based on extensive interviews with the former PM.
Perth's $1.86 billion airport train line is set to open on the 9th of October, following 2 years' worth of delays. The government says driver training is currently underway as testing reached its final stages. The airport line is jointly funded by both the federal and state governments, marking the first passenger railway linking Perth Airport. The new train line has 3 stations, High Wycombe, Airport Central and Redcliffe, with an estimated 20,000 passenger trips per day during its first year of service and 29,000 passengers in 2032. 26 new buses will be added to the transport network linking suburbs and the new stations.
As the Premier outlined, the best train station in the Southern Hemisphere and also the longest elevators currently in the Southern Hemisphere. Escalators in the Southern Hemisphere. So an incredible project and an opening date on October the 9th. On that day we'll have a community day. We'll be inviting members of the community to come enjoy the new stations, in particular at Redcliffe and High Wycombe.
Dog and cat rescue organisations are calling on landlords to spare a thought for our furry friends, with many being surrendered because of rental laws. Dogs Refuge and Cat Haven are inundated with rescues, with many people giving up their pets after being disallowed in rentals, leading to calls for changes to WA's Tenancy Act to allow cats and dogs. Dogs Refuge says both organisations are overflowing with rescues, and they urge people to get behind our pets to ensure they continue to have permanent homes.
It's a huge issue. We haven't seen anything like it before. So of our surrender requests in July, for example, 35% of those requests, the primary reason they needed to give up their pet was because they were facing homelessness or eviction, or they were unable to find a rental property that would allow them to have pets. So what we're doing, we're sort of at the moment grouping together with the other rescues and with Shelter WA, and we're really urging WA to catch up with other states and amend the rental laws so that we're flipping the no pets rule, so that if some rental properties there's genuine reasons why you can't have pets there, but it should be the other way around. It should be a blanket rule that pets are allowed unless there's a good reason.
Speaking of pets, do you have any, Ivan?
Used to have 3 dogs with my grandma. I know you got a dog as well. You gonna get a cat for it?
I hope to get a cat one day. We'll have to see how things go.
It'll become cats and dogs then.
Cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs. And now here's AMA WA spokesman Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and medical commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. We're now entering that familiar part of the COVID cycle where the cases are coming down and people are talking as if the threat is over. But we know that there will be another variant around the corner in a month or two, and that we need to continue to focus on vaccination as well as on breathing clean air, so ventilation, masks in crowded public places, and antiviral therapies being available more widely for people. We also want childhood vaccination for kids under the age of 5, which will be starting in the next couple of weeks for particularly vulnerable kiddies, but as we get more supply, hoping that that will very soon be opened right up. We're now developing a large part of the population whose vaccines are a little out of date, who haven't had taken up the 4th dose when they're in the age group that can do that, and many who still haven't even taken up the 3rd dose of vaccine, and that's leaving them vulnerable as we head into spring and summer, which is the time in Europe when they've seen a resurgence of cases, such that in Germany at the moment, for example, they're mandating masks again. So we have to accept that this cycle is going to continue, because this infection doesn't give us the immunity for a prolonged period of time. It's not like with other diseases where if you have an infection then you're immune for life, like polio, for example, which is making a bit of a comeback in some places in the world now, unfortunately. We know that once you've had polio, you're not going to get it again for the rest of your life. But that's different with this coronavirus, with COVID, and we know that that therefore means repeated vaccinations like that we see on an annual basis for influenza are going to be required to prevent severe disease and death. Hopefully one day they'll come up with a vaccine that gives us what's called sterilising immunity, which means that the virus will no longer be passed around the community, but we don't have that yet. So we have to strike a balance where we say, yes, we're going to allow free travel and we're going to, for the most part, get on with things, but at the same time we have to accept some protections in the community, particularly if we're going to have full engagement from vulnerable people who can't be vaccinated or who are on chemotherapy or immune therapy or have some other sort of disease, which is a large part of the population, in fact. We don't want them to have to live as hermits in their homes, and so the rest of us really need to, at times of high spread, such as we still have at the moment, trying to do the right thing when you're in public, and wearing a mask in crowded indoor public situations is really not that difficult. So thanks for your time, stay safe out there, and enjoy these sunnier days.
That was Dr. Andrew Miller. Now, here's Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. Tonight on 6 News, fears a large outbreak of foot and mouth disease could cost Australia $80 billion. But why have WA Labor MPs now accused lobby groups and the media of fueling a fear campaign? Also, fallout continues after the Victorians Party, which aimed to rumble that 100 candidates in the November state election, pulled out in a move labelled extraordinary. And the man accused of carrying out a stabbing attack against author Salman Rushdie enters a not guilty plea in a New York court. You can see full details on those stories and plenty more by heading to our YouTube channel. Just search 6NewsAU to find us, or head to our website, 6newsau.com. For now, guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo, and that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, we wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.